right, so I'm here with CJ Oswald. CJ Oswald. He is known in Farmville as a guy who looks like CJ Oswald. I don't know what else to say about him. No. Sorry, CJ. I'm bad at introducing people, if you haven't, found out already. But we actually co-hosted a comedy open mic at Press Club last night, and it was very fun. I performed my tight five-ish, and also, we had a comedian from Richmond out there. It was just a good time. But CJ is known in the music scene in Farmville, starting gigs and just making shows happen all around. CJ, introduce yourself for everybody listening.
Hey, buddy. Thanks for having me. Thanks for last night. That was a lot of fun.
It was very fun.
Last night I introduced myself by saying, "Hi, I'm CJ Oswald. Same spelling, no relation to Lee Harvey." We'll just get that out of the way right now.
That's a good way to start everything. Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. I've just learned to get it out of the way right up front because it's the first thing everybody always thinks of. So.
Yeah. I'm so sorry, but do you mind actually moving your mic a little bit closer? I'm getting like a slight echo, and that might be my bad.
Yeah. Is that better?
Way better.
There we
go. Way better. Perfect. So CJ, thanks for coming out, by the way. You live about 40 minutes from Farmville. Is that right? Or somewhere?
Yeah, right about 40 minutes. I live out in Drake's Branch. I landed here a few years ago. I'm a New Virginian.
Okay. How did you end up here? Well, that sounds negative. How did you end up here, CJ? Yeah.
My best friend owns a house here.
Okay.
And they have purchased this house because this is the first climate zone south where you can grow some different kind of vegetation.
I hear you.
And they have a big landscape company, so they're developing a nursery to create different plants to fulfill their own orders.
Very nice. Very nice. How did you meet this friend? Was it like a childhood friend?
Yeah,
to Virginia?
Lifelong friends. We've been best friends for over 30 years, and we went to middle school together and moved from Ohio to Maryland following one another, and then he bought this home here, so I'm kind of the caretaker of it and get to use this as the hub to pursue my music career and while we develop it into a tree nursery.
Very nice, very nice. What are you going to do with the tree nursery after it's all developed? I mean,
to feed the company. Right now the company purchases from other nurseries to fulfill their orders, and instead they will be making their own products.
Very nice, very nice. Well, that's good to hear. I'm glad you got a place to stay, and it's a good place to kind of hone in on the crafts and just kind of taking care of nature is very nice, and it's just relaxing. I know when I go for a walk in the evening and I'm just around trees, I feel better. Just being around nature and outside, breathing the fresh air. I think Virginia is a good place to do that.
Absolutely. That's really my favorite thing about it is just that it's so very country, and where I live in particular is really, really secluded, and I don't really have much neighbors, and it's just really nice. It's peaceful. And,
I know you told me this before, but where did you come from? Where were you from originally?
Originally, I grew up in Akron, Ohio.
Okay.
And then I lived in Maryland for about 20 years.
Wow.
And I've been here about going on 4, I think.
Okay, nice. There's some good variety in there. And so, this is the Farmville Spotlight. This is where we, ask questions about, to these musicians, how did you get started? Where does the motivation come from? And I did want to mention the phone lines are open. If you do have a question for CJ Oswald, host of the Press Club music open mics, and now the comedy open mics as well.
Yeah.
You can call in at the number 434-394-0924. But CJ, I just want to, I feel like you introduced yourself very well. I just kind of wanted to find out, how did you start in music? What were some of the first inspirations? When was the first time you picked up an instrument of any kind?
I think I was in second grade, and I borrowed one of my dad's guitars to complement a Halloween costume I had assembled.
Was it Elvis by chance? No.
No.
All right.
No, but I try to strive to have an Elvis-esque haircut. But
Yeah.
No, it was he loaned me a guitar for the day that I could walk around at school with and, do I think it was inner school trick or treat or something like that. And I just remember I just enjoyed having it hanging on my neck, and I started playing around with it a little bit. And my father's a lifelong musician, my uncle's a lifelong musician, and so it was always a musical family, although they didn't give me a lot of lessons or anything, and I never really took it serious. So you could say I started playing when I was 12, but I never became a performer or had any interest in that until way later in life.
Okay.
So I played novicely as a child,
Yeah. Did you have any, when did you start getting into music? Were you, listening to a lot of your father's music as a child? Did he play for you guys?
Yeah. He was not only a lifelong performer and a musician, but he was also a DJ for weddings. And he would take us with him to the record store. And that's where I really took an interest initially was, that first time you walk into a record store and just see all the album covers and, the idea of choosing one and just, the whole thing was enticing. My first choice was the Stray Cats. I bought We're Gonna Rock This Town.
Nice.
That's probably why I still to this day, I still have a little bit of a rockabilly kind of persona. And it's probably because that was my very first choice. And then I graduated immediately to Twisted
punk
Sister
rock.
and Motley Crue and that kind of stuff. It didn't take long to get into the hair metal.
Yeah.
That's the era I grew up in. But I cut my teeth on rockabilly kind of stuff. And my family owned catering services, so I attended weddings every weekend of my life.
Wow.
I started working when I was really young, so I heard that music. He was the DJ at some of those weddings.
What kind of music did he play?
Wedding music, like stuff that you would hear at a reception in the 90s. And, so I just got exposed to all of that good classic rock and all of this timeless hits, the kind of stuff that you might hear at a wedding first, before I really got interested in any particular type of music.
Okay.
So I was kind of lucky to have a broad exposure to a bunch of different kinds of popular music before getting really, really pulled into one direction. Yeah.
That's interesting. Just one quick question about your father, because I always find wedding DJs interesting. During the dancing of these weddings, was there a decent amount of dancing, or I guess it just varied between wedding to wedding?
Yeah, it depended on what time of the reception it was. There was several hours that were more focused towards dance, and other parts were more listening music during the dinners.
Very nice. What was a good just get down and groove kind of music back in the 90s? Did he have was it 80s music, or was it more
the song that I couldn't wait for that they played at every single wedding was "Paradise" by the Dashboard Light by Meatloaf.
Yes, of course.
And that one it's a long song. It's a storytelling song.
It is
It's got a bunch of cool parts. It's very theatrical, and there's just so much going on with it. And it graduates from one part to the next, and you get this whole musical journey with the song, and just everyone would just go wild when they played it. It was one that got everybody up and moving, and or at least talking about the song or whatever. It was just one that really stirred up the whole crowd every time without fail, and I think that's probably my favorite song from that whole entire experience. And so my least favorite song then is Just Take Those Old Records Off the Shelf.
Yeah.
I love Bob Seger. I'm a huge Bob Seger fan, but if I never hear Old Time Rock and Roll again, I'll be happy.
Happy man. You'll die a happy man. I know what you mean. Yeah, that song is one of the most overplayed songs maybe ever, I feel like. But that's very funny that when my parents got married, they always told us the story of the DJ that my dad's parents hired, and it was a one-man band. And so this guy had an accordion, he had cymbals in the back, a legit one-man band. And my mom was he was the worst DJ ever.
So he was a DJ and a one-man band?
He was a one-man band, and he played all the music for the wedding. So I don't know how that's worked. I wasn't there, but
he was supposed to hire a DJ.
Yeah, I guess he was supposed to hire a DJ, and they ended up hiring this one-man band from somewhere in New Jersey. I don't know. Who knows where he's at today? I hope he's doing well.
The name DJ Clown should have been a giveaway.
Yeah. Oh, true.
Just kidding.
Oh man. So CJ,
See, I can't hang out with you now without doing comedy.
Oh yeah. We're gonna bounce back and forth. That's right. I wanted to ask you, when was the first gig you actually pulled off, and you organized, you got notes, and you were like, hey, are you coming? Can I sign you up? Okay, perfect. And you orchestrated this event where people showed up. Was there a first time, or was it just a gradual process of being hey, I'm having a show in my garage, we're going to be playing, and then just people started shuffling on in?
That right there is pretty much what it was. It started out throwing farm parties that had a little bit of a festival vibe.
Okay.
I was very fortunate to have a real big farm property that I lived at for many years in Maryland, and We had a detached garage where we built a stage inside of it, and we started having shows, because, well, what really happened was initially I started renting out practice space because I had just moved there from a townhouse, and it was so miserable we couldn't practice there without getting in trouble. And so I remember thinking to myself, man, if all these people in this community living in townhouse, they would love to have a place they could rent practice space. So I started renting out my practice space, and I got to know all these bands. And I was like, well, we might as well throw a party and have all the bands play at the party. So it's turned into like sort of a little showcase. So really, I kind of started a collective of musicians before I became one myself. And then I kind of started a hobby band initially with no real intention of becoming a live performer.
Did you have a name for the band?
At that time, I didn't.
Or was it just called Hobby Band?
It just wasn't called anything. We just hung out and played. But then something happened that changed all of that, and I ended up booking a major gig before having a band, and then formed a band to be able to play my first big gig.
Wow! How did you get that gig?
So back in the day, I was a business director, and one of the guys that worked for me, he came to me and he said, "Boss, you seem pretty stressed out. Let me take you to a bluegrass festival." And I was like, "What the heck is that? That sounds terrible, And he's like, "No, trust me, we're going to go there and party and have a good time. This is what you need, a weekend getaway." And so I went there, and I was playing around the fire. And the guy who owned the place, he walked over to me and he said, "Man, you're great. Next time you come here, I'm putting you on stage." And I had no intention of it. I had no desire to become a performer. I had a very, very serious career at the time, but I agreed to do it. I said, "Okay, when is that?" And he gave me a date and a time, and he said, "You're going to go on the stage at this time, and you're going to play for half an hour." And little did I know, I was opening for a signed artist that day. So my very first show ever was opening for one of the major acts of the event.
Wow.
And I got addicted right on the spot. I was like, I fell in love with being on that stage. And
the adrenaline.
Just the whole experience.
Everything.
And everything I had to do to prepare myself for that and to throw myself to the wolves like that. And I was completely out of place and still pulled it off. And that's how I feel about last night, too. I did the same thing last night with my first time doing stand-up comedy. And it's just for me, that's just part of my artistic process. I wait till the last minute and throw myself to the fire because I love the pressure. I love feeding off that kind of nervous energy and that sort of thing. So where other people might not like that, me, I love it. So I'm very blessed in that way. But that's how it happened. It was completely unexpected. It was completely unintentional. It wasn't something I saw after. It just fell in my lap, and I had a choice to accept it and run with it or not, and I did. Essentially, over the next a very short, brief time, like maybe over the next 2 years, I fully abandoned my career and just played live music ever since. That's
always a tough decision, but it always works out in the end. If you're just following, you're like, I know this is the right thing. And the funny thing about this, maybe I'm wrong, but I feel things like that when you feel kind of led to do something, there's almost always no good reasons for it. You're you're talking to somebody and they're like, wait, so you're leaving your professional job to do this? And there's no logical explanation. You can't explain this feels right for me without just being other people being okay, well, good luck with that. But it's
exactly what I experienced.
It works out. I'm not saying all the time, but I think trying enough and just continuing in that just thoughts and mindsets that you will eventually find your niche or your audience or what have you.
Yeah, that's perfect. Well said. I mean, that's exactly what I went through, and some of that doubt still lingers. Like for example, my mom's still mad at me. She's like, what are you thinking? You went from $6 figures to $6 overnight. Why did you do that? And all I can say is just that I feel like it was the right thing to do, and my place in the marketplace is to constantly increase my skills. So what I've actually done over the last decade is become proficient at a dozen different things within the entertainment industry. And I'm the one-stop mentality. Working with me is, someone can get plugged into any direction they want to go.
Yeah.
Because I'm already there, in some capacity. And I think that's what the biggest thing I've taken away from it. Instead of a commercial success, what I've got from it is a
life's worth success.
Yes,
Almost
a
just like
worth
of the experience.
and the experience of it all. If I had to summarize it quickly, I would say it's like I've spent the last 10 years living on vacation.
Nice. Okay. Yeah.
Well, that's what the music industry is, a train.
Yeah.
Once you get on it, you can't get off.
No.
Or more so, if you do get off, you're not going to get back on easily. Mm-hmm. So it's something kind of like, everywhere we go, there's a place to stay, and somebody's going to feed us, and there's some good times to be had, and some wonderful people to meet. And then you go on to the next place, and everything's always paid for. But if you want off the train, you don't get to take any of that with you.
I feel like there's a song in there for some reason.
There is. I've been working on it for years.
Okay,
so
that's actually
it's writing itself. Yes.
Yeah. I was like, while you were saying those words, I was like, why does this sound like a song? Like perfectly, almost. That's
nice.
great. That's great. I wanted to ask you, what were some of the hardships of doing all this? And like, also, I did want to mention, like, you've worked in television and some radio work, and you said a couple of other ones. Did like live? Well, obviously, like live performances as well.
Yeah.
Was there anything else?
Yeah. I have a credit roll in a movie.
Okay.
I did a drive time radio show for many weeks, many years ago on Clear Channel, actually in DC. Wow. I've been on game show. I've done some TV. I've been lucky enough to, like I said, to have some proficiency in every single area of the entertainment industry, not only as a performer but also as a producer. So I'm a weird case that I'm a bit on both sides of the fence, and I did that out of necessity. When I knew that I was unseasoned and that I wouldn't be able to keep myself very busy unless I did it myself, and so I write, play, sing, and have managed all of my bands, and that immediately just evolved into becoming a festival and event producer. I've produced over 500 events in my career to date. If I count everything at Press Club. At Press Club is a little different because there it's more of that I am the booking manager. I'm in charge of our entertainment program. Everything else I produce abroad is my own production. So all the events that I throw throughout West Virginia and other places in Maryland and Virginia. And then I perform in about a 10-state radius, and I've even got to perform in other countries. So I'm a globally touring artist, and I've been at it a long, long time. And for me, the toughest thing is towing the line between being an entertainer and being an artist. That has been the toughest part.
Wow.
Because the music business has nothing to do with music in a way. And so being on both sides of the fence gives me very unique perspective, and it helps me to keep myself busy and motivated and to understand the ever-changing environment. It's a weird business because there are really no rules, and just there's a million different ways to gain notoriety. There's a million ways to get your head above the crowd.
Especially
there's not a million ways to make $1 million. It's a really hard road for a lot of musicians. They can work their whole entire life and never achieve a commercial success, while also feeling all the great benefits of being the lifestyle of an artist. Artists live a little bit off the program. It's like a whole different way of life. It's not something I do. It's who I am.
Yeah. That's a good word. And I mean, I can only imagine like the challenges of trying to do both, or like doing both, like literally you being like part of me. It's like having a split personality in a sense of being like, okay, so it's business now, and then I gotta, I gotta get a show booked. I gotta find people to do this, and I gotta make sure it's tight and like everything flows well. And then like you also want that other part of being like, music comes from like a natural, like almost like relaxed place where you just like you experiment long enough and you're in your head a lot. I feel like a lot of musicians are in their heads and just like trying to figure out like what works, like what do people want to hear. And so I can imagine like you're like both good and evil because like you got absolutely. How do you manage that, CJ? What are the secrets?
Well, I am schizophrenic, so that's just how I can flip personalities like that. And no, that's actually true. I actually do have a little bit of an identity crisis.
Yeah.
And I spent the whole first decade of my career under the pseudonym of Batman. You asked what my band's name was. So my friends, I mentioned I was had a serious career, and so I would come home every day wearing black suits, and
nice.
And I drove back then I had a black BMW convertible that looked a little bit like the Batmobile, and one day somebody said, "Oh, here comes Batman again."
Yeah.
And it just stuck. It became my nickname, and everybody's called me that. So my band was called Batman's Dynamic Trio. You know, like the dynamic duo, we just kind of played on it, and that's what we debuted as. So when they called us up, they're like, "Hey, you're playing at this festival, right? What should we put on the poster?" And that's what came out of my mouth. I was like, "Oh, just write Batman." Mm-hmm. So my very first performance, I was billed as Batman, and then my very first performance with a band, we were billed as Batman's Dynamic Trio, which was somewhat short-lived. We had a good run for a couple years, and then we reformed into a band called Bat's Dynamic String Band, and that one ran for nearly a decade.
Wow. That's a long touring time.
Yeah, I've been out there a long time, and there was this weird evolvement of different Batman labels. And now I just go by my own name, but it's the first time in my career that I've done that. So,
okay, gotcha.
So I'm kind of newly emerging as my own name, but I have a lot of material out under the...
Do you feel
a lot of history as the Bat character? So I'm the artist formerly known as Batman. So.
Yeah. Do you feel like almost like a sense of detachment from like these? I don't want to say decades, but these like years, like these chunks of years between like the early, the Batman band and then the Batman trio, dynamic trio. As far as like who you are, do you still because like you're transforming as a musician constantly? I feel like. But like it's just like such a difference. Maybe not so different, but like you're evolving. I would say at a quick rate. So
absolutely, and I have to. If I didn't have the ability to have that kind of professional detachment, I wouldn't be able to be fluid between them. And really, to answer your first question more. It is kind of like being a little schizophrenic because, and the Batman thing is a character that I could play on stage.
Yeah.
It was sort of like a vigilante character. So I was also kind of like the park ranger too because I was the guy throwing the festivals, so I had to make sure to watch after everybody.
That's right.
and make sure everybody stayed safe and all that kind of stuff. So I really took on the persona in many different ways and it sort of it kind of became an identity crisis a little bit. But also the whole time I knew that this was my era to season myself without using my own name. So it really worked in my favor because now I can start fresh and be detached from all of that. And in a very real way, I'm taking it serious for the very first time.
Yeah.
Even though I've been out there for a decade, it was just always kind of a novelty thing to us in a way. And now that I'm coming into my own as a songwriter and looking forward to releasing my own recordings, I have a real different attitude about it. So,
did you have any releases as like the other bands, like the Batman band and then the trio? Did you ever have like any album releases?
Yeah. You can find Bat's Dynamic String Band on all major platforms.
Okay, nice.
And you can follow CJ Oswald on all major platforms as well.
Okay, nice.
I should have new music out this fall.
Very nice. So you are working on some current because I did want to mention that or like ask you if you had any projects in the works, anything like that.
I do not have a band, but I am working on releasing some material.
Some like solo.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and release some solo stuff and see where we can go with it and then build a band around that. Something I've always been one to just stay on tour all the time. I never bothered to stop and make any sort of product or merchandise or any of that. So I'm really behind a lot of ways in that category and looking forward to sort of rectifying that and becoming a little more established in a traditional way. I've kind of avoided that on purpose. I'm a very indie artist.
Yeah.
And now I'm going to go ahead and turn that corner, I think, and do some real releases.
And that's more like a manager's mindset, too, of being like, oh, we got to have stuff to release, or like, like people, like shirts to print out, and so like people can be a part of like the experience, or just like, but like as a musician, I guess like it's hard to keep a focus on that when you're more focused on like writing the actual music and performing.
Yes, and it was also a function of not taking myself very seriously.
Okay.
It was hard to... It's easy for someone else to do that when they have a vested interest in it. When it's you yourself, it's different. And what you were saying about, how it must be hard to be playing both roles. Well, imagine, I can take it even further than that. Imagine if you're throwing the event while performing at the event.
Yeah,
so if you're on stage and also watching the door, wondering if you're going to get creamed today or not. Is this event going to lose $10,000 today?
Yeah.
Is something difficult to be thinking about while you're also on a stage performing.
Yeah.
So I had to really be fluid fluidly able to focus and switch personas, and so it really did develop that. But I think a lot of that comes from previously doing some acting and stuff too. So like I said, for me, it's just been a wonderful experience where I've got to learn every single position in the entertainment world and just kind of go from one to the next. And it's been really awesome, but it also in some ways is convoluting. So sometimes it is hard to stay focused on one thing. Someone said the other day when I announced that we were doing a comedy show, someone went on there and just wrote squirrel. And I knew exactly what they meant. They were implying that I just can't figure out what I want to do, and so I just do it all, and it works for me, So
very good. I wanted to ask you, have you had any funny stories about, especially performing at open mics? I love open mics, and I think you get this because when you go into an open mic, especially a dead one, or not even a dead one, just where the energy at an open mic is so intense. You can feel it sometimes, not all of the time, but I feel at least comedy open mics in Richmond's and even just any sort of performance like that, the nerves, you can see everybody's nerves as a musician. Anybody who's signed up, they're totally detached from what's going on on stage, and they're just okay, what am I gonna do? It's just everybody is so preoccupied on what am I gonna do? That kind of thing. And so it's just a bunch of people standing around that have signed up, and then 3 guys drunk at a bar, and that's the energy, and I love that. There's something special about that. I just I don't know. It's one of my favorite places to be is at an open mic anywhere. I love that experience. But funny.
I was saying before, how one of the things I love the most is feeding off of that kind of nervous energy.
Yeah.
And I think what you're describing is more people kind of fighting off that nervous energy, and so it's a different dynamic. And at the same time, they are experiencing the love for it the same way that people like to be scared. Yeah. There's a very, very strong parallel in people that like being scared, love to go to a scary movie or whatever, is very similar to someone that likes to put themselves into that kind of a situation, And
absolutely.
And so definitely, I love that too, and it's very fun to observe it in others.
Very great, but I feel that kind of environment allows you to see a lot of great, funny, I don't want to say bombs, but because anybody going up and signing up, they already won. In my mind, they already won because they took the time to sign up. But that doesn't mean that there's not funny things that happen at an open mic that are just I can't stop thinking about this thing. It's so funny.
Last night's not a bad example.
Yeah, no, last night was a great example. But other than last night though, have you had any even back in the day going to open mics? Has anybody really just
my own personal one for me was. This was actually a lot of fun. We had one in Montgomery County, Maryland, at my favorite pizza place, and I didn't really know anybody yet, and they didn't know me. And I was coming home from a work day, so I was wearing a suit. And when I walked in that place, they probably just assumed I was a stiff in a suit, you know. And I remember the crowd there it was a Grateful Dead night, and so the open mic was centered around Grateful Dead music. And I remember that everybody kind of snubbed me a little bit because I looked so
snobby.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I looked like I belonged there in Montgomery County, and no, I'm just teasing. It's a great place. But so when it was my turn to perform, I got up there and played 3 Grateful Dead songs, and they went nuts. They were like, "What is happening? Who's this clean cut guy in a suit rocking these tunes for us?" And that was one of the things that really set me kind of in that direction. And I, from that point on, I took a much greater interest in improvisational music and jam band music. And it was really my first era of being exposed to any of that. I was a metalhead up until that point. And the first time I saw a really good improvisational guitar player live, it changed my whole life, my whole perspective on music, and it made me want to go that path instead of the polished, rehearsed math metal kind of music. And so because there's an element of realness and an element of it unfolding in the now, and you don't know what's going to happen, you know. And so Right now, I'm to the point where I enjoy just getting up and playing with a band, not knowing what's going to happen next. And I even sometimes tell them, just please don't tell me anything. And I like to be surprised. Let's roll. And that took a long time to develop that.
Yeah.
You know, but like I said, that's part of my process. I love to throw myself to the fire. So,
yeah.
you know.
And that's and honestly like where people start to get push out of themselves and into the moment. I feel like, if that makes sense, of just being like, oh, well, I don't know exactly what's going to happen next. I got to flow with it. I have to flow with it. And you're kind of like forced in a good way to kind of just go with that and just kind of see what happens. And I think that's great. And I also think there's something incredibly funny about a guy wearing a suit and playing Grateful Dead songs at like an open mic. There's something.
Too. That's what's so fun
it's so
about
great.
It.
It's so hilarious.
I just, I was just like, the whole time I was just kind of watching around the room, and like I had captivated the whole room because it was so out of place. It was
exactly.
It was like a reverse shock value.
That's a perfect way to put it, CJ. Yeah. I did want to mention again, the phone lines are open at 434-394-0924. If you have a question for CJ or you want to talk about music, you can call in. But I wanted to ask CJ. I know you have a couple of original songs that you wrote, and if you feel comfortable now, if you want to wait a minute, but we can
sure
go ahead.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear some of.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I'm a songwriter. I've been writing songs since I was probably in my middle to late teen age, and I didn't take them serious at all. Again, I just played as a novelty growing up, but I had a handful. I wrote 6 or 10 when I was a kid or whatever, and then I put it down for about 20 years. And once I got that first gig, I said to myself, I want to go in there with at least one original song of my own. And so I wrote one to perform at that first gig. And since then, I've written about 70. And I'd say about maybe 30 of them or so are complete. I'll perform 2 of them for you here today. Yeah.
That'd be great. And I think another interesting part of like your music and like how you kind of carry yourself as a performer is like you're not like obsessed with like getting new gear or like getting new like I gotta get like this like special guitar, but you play with like old. I don't want to say raggedy because I think they're really cool, but like you're like, hey, I found this in some guy's basement. I'm gonna play a show now. It's like you gotta your guitar is. Do you want to tell us what it is?
Well, there's 2 reasons for that. One is I really do have a little bit of a rockabilly persona just because happenstance, that's what I bought. Like I said, that first time at the record store, I picked the Stray Cats. So it's stuck with me a little bit my whole life. I've owned over 200 guitars, but this one happens to be my favorite, and I only paid $80 for it at a yard sale in West Virginia. It is worth about $1,000, but I got very lucky to be able to purchase it for $80. And although I have many very nice guitars, I just favor this one. And I think it's because at heart I'm a real minimalist. For me, like conservation actually means like, being frugal and making something big out of nothing. And that's what Bat's Dynamic String Band was all about. We were a single acoustic guitar, a single mandolin, and a 1-string washtub bass.
Wow.
So with practically nothing, we went out and made a heck of a ruckus for a whole decade almost. And so, as a minimalist, I favor vintage and antique equipment because there's just not much going on with it. And they made things better back then.
Yeah.
This is of great quality. So this right here is a 1968 Alden H45. They were sold by Woolworth, and I was lucky enough to score one. So I actually wrote this song on this guitar.
Okay.
I'll play this one for you. So earlier we were talking about my father. I wrote this one for him. It's called Sink or Swim, and it goes like this. Oh, yeah. He's a damn good man, spent a lot of time with me. Set the tone for lots of things, how they should be. He said, son, you don't always have to have a plan. Try to be on time and do the best you can. Say what you mean everything you say. You'll get far in life, you're gonna figure it out one day. And then he did something I never expected him. He threw me off the boat and said, son, sink or swim. Sink or swim. Sink or swim. Sink or swim. I will play tug of war with you. If we both pull the same way, ain't no way we can lose, but you gotta jump in. Yeah, he threw me off the boat and said, sink or swim. Sink or swim. And now I'm older, I started to grow up. I guess my late teen years were a little rough. Somehow we ended up living apart. I didn't see him very much those days, but I say, well, I don't regret it none. I had my time when I was young. It taught me everything I would ever need to know. When he did something I never expected of him. When he threw me off the boat and said, son, sink or swim. Sink or swim. Sink or swim. Sink or swim. I will play tug of war with you. If we both pull the same way, ain't no way we can lose, but you gotta jump in. Yeah, he threw me off the boat and said, sink or swim. Sink or swim. He threw me off the boat and said, sink or swim.
Amazing. CJ, is it fair to say that was based off of a true story?
Oh yeah. Now the water was only about 2 feet deep, but I didn't know that.
Oh yeah.
It was great.
That's funny, man. That's good. You got another one for us?
Yeah, I'll play another one for you.
Okay, perfect.
So I just think this thing sounds beautiful. And
it sounds so great.
really great with this antique amplifier.
Absolutely.
It's stock 78 Princeton reverb, and so vintage, antique. I'm vintage. Pretty soon, all three of us are going to be antique. So. But don't tell anybody. This one's called Down in This Place.
Okay.
And it's about living fast and living hard.
All right.
Bad wind flying through the dusty, cloudy sky, moving fast under the cover of the night. In this frame of mind should never take to flight. He moved on, restless towards the light, along his way flew into a clear glass wall, a lotus den comprised of slippery slides and halls. At the end of each hall a new path laid. Further down the hole is every choice he made, spiraling out of control in a downward spin. He landed on a bed of ecstasy and sin. Those beds were made of rusty nails and razor blades. For a long time there he laid. He spread his wings and tried to fly back from that hole. His wings were clipped, this life had taken its toll. Got off the ground but fell back into his face. On that day he learned how the dirt tastes. Down, 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 down in this place. 68 had turned the mud within his veins. Down in the hole he spent the rest of his days, further lost down in this endless maze. Couldn't find the courage to change his ways. Through the crack in the wall shone moonlight, lit up this dark cell on this black night. That crack became his best, his last, his only friend, and he confided in light until the end. He spread his wings and tried to fly back from that hole. His wings were clipped, this life had taken its toll. Got off the ground but fell back into his face. On that day he learned how the dirt tastes. Down, 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 down in this. Spread his wings and tried to fly back from that hole. His wings were clipped, this life had taken its toll. Got off the ground but fell back into his face. On that day he learned how the dirt tastes. Down, 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 down in this place.
Amazing. Wow, CJ, that's... I don't know how that hasn't blown up yet. That was...
Thank you. Because it's not released.
Oh, my goodness.
There's one live version from last year's Rock the Block
Yeah.
out on YouTube. If you like that song, you can listen to a different performance on an acoustic. So
That's incredible. Well, we have it recorded here, so...
not bad for... well, I mean, that one's already out today.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah. There you go.
Look it up right now. I just want everyone to search my name on there.
Yeah, yeah.
If you can Google me, that would help me.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we're going to be closing out the show. And that was like the perfect ballad to end this wonderful interview. And CJ, thank you for coming out, man. Like,
Hey,
this has
man,
been great.
thank you for having me.
Of course.
And thank you for last night. And
Of course. I'm glad. I hope we can do it again, sometime soon.
Absolutely.
And I guess I just like want to, plug your stuff. Like, where can people find you? And do you have any like shows coming up or anything like that?
I do. Just search CJ Oswald. Again, it's the same spelling, but no relation
That's right.
to Lee Harvey.
Okay.
I'm on all major platforms. I'm on
Okay.
all social media sites, and it's easy to find my schedule. I don't
Okay.
have it committed to memory, but yes, I have a few shows coming up. I'll be locally. You can catch me a couple more times this year at Sandy River Distillery.
Okay.
On many a Wednesday night, you can catch me at North Street Press Club hosting open mic, and I usually do a performance there and sometimes jam with other people. And if you want to come jam with me, come on down on an open mic night, and we'll jam together. So I'm always looking for people to play with and write with, and so feel free to shoot me a note. I do respond to most of my inbound inquiries, and hope to hear from y'all.
Awesome. CJ Oswald, everybody. Again, thank you so much for coming out, and thank you, listeners, for listening in to this episode of the Farmville Spotlight. We will catch you the end of July, the last Thursday of July. We'll be back with some more. Stay cozy for now. All right. Goodbye.